South Korea woke up to a clear signal from Washington. The new U.S. National Defense Strategy says Seoul is capable of taking a primary role in deterring North Korea, with U.S. support described as critical but more limited. In response, President Lee Jae-myung argued that building a more self-reliant defense posture is the most basic of basics, framing it not as a slogan but as a baseline expectation in a changing alliance era. The story also got immediate momentum because the Pentagon announced that Elbridge Colby, the U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, will travel to South Korea and Japan right after the strategy's release. That timing matters. It suggests the document is not just theoretical. Washington wants follow-through, coordination, and a shared understanding of what doing more looks like in practice. For viewers living in or visiting Korea, this is a reminder that alliance policy debates aren't abstract. They can shape defense planning, budgeting priorities, and the tone of U.S.-Korea strategic messaging. Today's headlines don't announce a rupture, but they do describe an evolving division of responsibilities, where Seoul is expected to carry more of the immediate deterrence burden, while the alliance recalibrates for broader regional challenges. South Korea's market story today is a mix of momentum and skepticism. One headline says the Kospi has pushed past 5,000, triggering the big question. Is this rally still in its early innings, or is a pullback around the corner? Another data point adds fuel. Foreign ownership of Korean stocks as a share of total market cap hit its highest level in nearly 6 years, with the exchange highlighting net buying in sectors like shipbuilding, defense, and nuclear power. And then there's Samsung, often the emotional center of Korea's market narrative. A separate report says Chairman Lee Jae-yong warned against complacency even as the company expects record earnings, a combination that reads like, yes, the numbers look great, but don't assume the next quarter is guaranteed. Put together, today's picture is not simply stocks up. It's more like a referendum on whether Korea's rally is supported by durable drivers, foreign inflows, sector rotation, and corporate performance, or whether optimism is starting to outrun the fundamentals. For expats or travelers who follow Korea's economy through the lens of daily life, market strength can still matter indirectly. A hotter market can influence household sentiment, corporate hiring plans, and policy debates over stability versus stimulus. The takeaway: Korea's equities are surging, but the conversation has already shifted from can it rise to can it last? Woori Bank is trying to frame 2026 as a turning point year. At a management strategy meeting attended by roughly 900 executives in Incheon, CEO Young Jin-won said the bank needs to show tangible results after laying groundwork for growth, and he vowed to narrow the gap with larger competitors. This matters because Korea's big financial groups have been reshuffling leadership and setting new priorities, and banks are under pressure to modernize, especially around digital transformation, cost efficiency, and risk controls. Another report about leadership changes at top financial groups points to a broader new era mood across the sector, while a separate industry roundup highlights executives emphasizing AI and digital innovation as core themes. Put simply, the sector isn't just competing on branch networks anymore, it's competing on tech, speed, and trust. For foreigners in Korea, big bank strategy can show up in very practical places. Mobile banking, UX changes, new authentication rules, faster cross-border services, and different lending standards for small businesses. Woori's message today is that the bank believes it has finished building a foundation, and now it must prove it can execute, grow, and compete at the top tier. The headline isn't about a single new product. It's about a bank trying to convince markets and customers that 2026 is when its rebuild becomes results. A Seoul court ruling is adding a new wrinkle to how Korea treats certain vaping products. Reports say the Seoul Administrative Court partially sided with vape juice importers in a dispute over additional health promotion charges, while still spelling out that vape liquids can fall under Korea's tobacco product classification in a legal sense. That split outcome is the key. Importers appear to have gained ground on one cost-related front, but the court's reasoning also reinforces that regulators can treat vaping liquids within the tobacco control framework. Why does this matter to everyday residents? Because classification drives everything: taxes, labeling requirements, distribution rules, and enforcement priorities. It also feeds the broader public debate in Korea over youth protection, public health messaging, and how to regulate fast-evolving nicotine delivery products. Even if you don't vape, these rulings can influence retail pricing and what products appear on shelves or disappear. For foreigners living in Korea, the practical takeaway is simple. Rules around vape liquids are not static, and legal interpretations can shift the compliance burden between importers, retailers, and agencies. Today's headlines suggest Korea is still fine-tuning where vaping sits on the spectrum between consumer product and regulated tobacco, using the courts as one arena where that boundary gets tested. A major power outage in Seoul's Guro district became a real-life stress test during a winter cold snap. Reports say electricity was restored after roughly 19.5 hours, an unusually long disruption for a dense urban area. Local updates emphasize restoration timelines and the operational scramble that follows. Keeping homes heated, managing elevator outages, preserving food, and coping with limited building services. When a cold wave hits, a blackout stops being a minor inconvenience. It turns into a safety and infrastructure issue. One official safety notice tracked the restoration status, while separate coverage described the outage length and the wider context of harsh winter conditions. For foreigners living in Korea, the practical angle is preparedness. If you're in a high-rise, know where flashlights are, keep phone batteries topped up during extreme weather alerts, and understand building emergency procedures. Also, if you're traveling, remember that severe cold can cause knock-on effects: transit delays, slippery roads, and localized infrastructure stress. Today's story isn't just the lights went out. It's a reminder that in winter, cities operate on thin margins. Heat, power, and mobility all become linked. And when one piece fails, the ripple can last for hours. Korea's coffee obsession just showed up in hard numbers. Reports say coffee imports exceeded 2 trillion won for the first time in 2025, with one article citing imports of 2.65 trillion won, up 41% from the prior year. The drivers are familiar but painful: higher global coffee prices plus a weaker won, which makes imported goods more expensive in local currency terms. A related analysis piece points out that the rising cost isn't just about consumption, it's also about exchange rate pressure and international commodity prices reshaping the domestic cost structure. A third industry-oriented overview notes that Korea's import volumes and values have been climbing over time, reinforcing the idea that coffee has become a structural part of Korea's consumer economy. For residents and visitors, the real-world takeaway is simple. You may keep seeing cafe prices creep upward, and small businesses that rely on coffee inputs face margin pressure. It's also a neat micro-story of macroeconomics. Even if your salary doesn't change, currency moves and global commodity cycles can land in your daily latte. Today's headline isn't just about coffee, it's about how global prices and FX conditions filter into everyday life in one of the world's most coffee-dense markets. One of Korea's signature winter events just crossed a milestone. The Hwacheon Sancheoneo Ice Festival has surpassed the 1 million visitor mark, according to organizers and local reports. Coverage says that from the festival's opening on Jan 10 through Jan 23, cumulative participation reached 945,800, and with weekend traffic, the total moved beyond 1 million. The event takes place in Hwacheon County in Gangwon, a mountain area known for deep winter cold, exactly the conditions needed for safe ice fishing. For travelers, this headline works like a tourism signal. Crowds are strong, the event is operating at scale, and winter festival infrastructure is in full swing. But it's also a logistics and safety story. Big winter events depend on ice conditions, crowd control, and transportation plans, especially when visitors include families and foreign tourists. If you're planning to go, expect peak day congestion, dress for extreme cold, and keep an eye on local guidance. The broader takeaway is that Korea's winter festival economy is alive and well, turning harsh weather into an experience and drawing mass participation even in a remote town. Korea's top men's figure skater, Cha Jun-hwan, is sitting in sixth place after the short program at his final pre-Olympic competition in Beijing. Reports say he scored 88.89 points at the ISU Four Continents Championships at the National Indoor Stadium, a key tune-up on the road to the Milan Cortina Olympics. Another outlet notes he fell in the short program, framing the result as disappointing, but not necessarily decisive because the free skate can still reshape standings. A third report, Olympic-focused coverage, also tracks the placement and context as part of the broader Olympic build-up. For casual viewers, the numbers matter less than the narrative. Pre-Olympic events are where skaters test consistency under pressure, reveal what's working, and expose what still breaks when the stakes rise. For Korean sports fans and international followers in Korea, it's a watchable storyline. Cha remains in contention, but the short program suggests he'll need a cleaner performance to climb. Today's takeaway is simple. The road to the Olympics isn't linear. One slip can change the tone, and the response in the next segment is what defines the trajectory. Korea's entertainment headlines today are less about one blockbuster and more about the daily rhythm of celebrity news. One report says Park Shin-hye's show, Undercover Miss Hong, delivered unpredictable twists. Described as the kind of dopamine rush that keeps viewers hooked, suggesting strong week-to-week buzz. Another article says actor Cha Ju-young will temporarily pause activities for health reasons, with her agency citing ENT-related medical needs and noting she will skip scheduled commitments. A third entertainment item tracks pop culture metrics. Singer Lim Young-woong topped the Trot Singer brand reputation ranking, with the report listing participation and media indices as part of the calculation. Put together, these stories show three big pillars of Korea's entertainment ecosystem: episodic TV momentum, the reality of health and schedule management in celebrity careers, and the constant measurement of public attention through rankings and indices. For foreigners in Korea, these headlines matter mostly as cultural temperature checks: what shows are being talked about, which names are trending, and how fandom and media cycles translate into measurable brand power. It's not geopolitics, but it's a snapshot of the content engine Korea exports worldwide, one day at a time. Korea's winter cold isn't just a weather map, it's a lived experience, and today's English-language commentary captures that vibe. One Korea Times piece simply labels it an Arctic blast, reflecting how quickly a cold wave becomes part of the national conversation. Another personal essay describes a first winter in Seoul as a different kind of cold, less about toughing it out, and more about constant attention to layers, wind, and how long you can stay outside without losing feeling in your fingers. And when cold waves intensify, they can amplify infrastructure stress, as seen in separate reporting on long-duration disruptions during the same period. For foreigners, the value of this bundle of stories is practical. Korea's winter can feel sharper than expected, even for people from cold climates, and the combination of wind, dry air, and sudden temperature drops can change how you plan your day. Add in the risk of localized disruptions, and the smart move is to treat official cold wave alerts as planning signals. Charge devices, keep emergency basics at home, and build time buffers for travel. Today isn't just "it's cold." It's a reminder that winter in Korea is a system. Weather affects movement, safety, and sometimes the reliability of daily services.